All right, so welcome to the Society of Thoracic Surgeons Congenital Heart Surgery Database monthly webinar. Today is Tuesday, June the 18th. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining. On the call with us today, we've got packed little STS house on the call today. So on the call with me today, Carol Crone, Banu Yaksi, Chastity, which I butchered your last name again, Banu, Chastity Wellness, Emily, Conrad, Leslie Wacker, Paul Meehan, and Addie Dolan, and Melinda Offer. So thanks everyone for joining the call today. Quickly go over the agenda. I'm just going to provide a couple of STS, super brief STS updates, and then I'm going to turn things over to Paul and Banu to share some information with you all. And then we are going to turn things over to Chastity and Leslie for our STS Data Manager education. We're going to do a little post-op event review. And then coming in July, in next month's monthly webinar, we're going to tackle some ascending aorta replacement case review. So be sure and join us in July for that presentation. And then as usual, we'll finish things up today via Q&A. Please be sure to submit your questions via the Q&A function. I think we're going to shut the chat box off. So submit your questions via the Q&A. And as always, if you have a question, just be sure to, you can use the raise hand function. Just make sure that your microphone is enabled on your end, and then we'll unmute you and you can feel free to ask your questions. All right, so let's go ahead and hop in with our STS updates. The June training manual is posted and available out on the STS website. The spring 24 harvest, as I stated on our last call, includes those surgery dates of 1/1/2020 through 12/31 of 2023. IQVIA is working on uploading the data into the platform, and I still don't have a solid date for the report release. We're hoping to begin our internal testing next week, so I'll keep you posted as we continue to go through the testing and review process. And again, we'll share more information with you all on report release as soon as I have it available. The fall 24 harvest is currently underway. We're accepting surgery dates of, where that reporting period will include surgery dates of July 1, 2020 through June 3rd. That should be June 30th of 2024. So I'll get that updated prior to posting the slide deck. So again, the harvest surgery dates include for fall 24, July 1, 2020 through 6/30/2024. Sorry about that. The fall 24 harvest is scheduled to close on September the 27th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And again, just the harvest schedule slide if you want to download that. Again, the harvest closes on September 27th, and the last day to opt out would be October the 1st. Also, AQO, super brief AQO update. AQO scheduled for September 11th through the 13th in Nashville. Registration obviously is now open, so we encourage you to go ahead and register for AQO and reserve your housing for those of you that will be joining us in person. We look forward to having you in person. For those of you who are not able to make it in person, we do have that virtual pass option available for you to purchase. We are currently accepting abstracts for AQO 2024. Abstract submission deadline is scheduled for Monday, June 24th. Emily gave me a brief update and let me know that as of right now, we have not received any congenital abstracts for AQO this year. So if you are planning to submit that abstract, we look forward to getting that. We would love to have congenital abstracts this year for AQO. So again, the deadline for abstract submission is Monday, June 24th. And if you have any questions about that, please feel free to contact Emily. Her contact information is out on the STS website. And I think we could also put her contact info in the chat box if you need that as well. Again, this is just the pricing information. I've gone over this over the last couple of webinars. So the pricing information is here for in-person versus virtual. All of this information is also posted out on the STS website. For those of you that, if you need a justification letter, you can request a justification letter out on the STS website. So all of the information for AQO. I'm just actually going to pull this over so I can just quickly show you where all the information for AQO is posted. I just get to the page through the education tab, education. I just go to calendar of events. It's just the easiest way for me to remember it. And I just click on the 2024 advances in quality and outcomes, and all of the information for AQO is located here. We have the link to submit an abstract, pricing, hotel arrangements, cancellations, accreditation statement. Here is the link to request a justification letter if you would need that to provide to your management to hopefully get that AQO covered. All the information is here, and of course the location for this year's AQO is in Nashville, Tennessee, and we will be at the Lowe's Vanderbilt Hotel. So we look forward to having you join us this year. Also, just so you're aware, the AQO reception this year is going to be on Thursday evening. So we would love to have you all join us on Thursday evening for the reception. More information about reception information will be coming in the coming weeks. So, but we will be having our reception this year. So come join us, network, meet everyone, have some snacks and cocktails, and we look forward to meeting everyone there and seeing you in Nashville. All right, let's see here. And I think that's all that I have. Emily, did I miss anything in regards to AQO?
I was just going to mention we'll have a program agenda on the website shortly with like the topics and speakers, if that's something that obviously you want to see what's going on at the meeting, but also if you want to provide that, if you with your justification letter or something to get funding, it'll be up on the website soon.
Awesome, thank you. Next, I'm going to turn things over to Paul and Banu. They're going to just give a review of STS database platform access request process. So Paul and Banu, just let me know and I'll advance the slides as you need.
Thank you, Leanne. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. So recently there has been a new functionality that has been released on the database platform, and we think that it's a great opportunity to review the database platform access request process with you all, so that we can ensure that we all have a smooth harvest process and harvest close. My name is Banu Yaji, and I'm the Senior Manager of Quality Measures and Database Support here at STS. And with my colleague and co-presenter Paul Meehan, who is the Senior Manager of Quality and Resource Center, we will just cover the new MPI validation functionality, what it is, what to do when you receive error messages regarding your hospital or surgeon NPIs, and just how to add context to your PID to eliminate these types of errors. So I will just turn it over to Paul to start up this presentation, and thank you for joining us again.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Banu. So I'll just go ahead and jump right in. The whole point of what we want to present here is that we put a new feature in place to kind of double check something that we've already had as a requirement for a long time. So in order for STS to be able to analyze your data, we have to have a signature on file from all of your surgeons and your anesthesiologists to be able, that's giving us permission to use their data in analysis or the data that relates to their procedures. So as I said, this has always been a requirement. We've been wanting everybody to keep this information up to date so that we have that list. And it's only recently that we put a check in place to make sure that this is, that our information is up to date. And so to make sure that we're staying legal here and that we have all the signatures that we need. Now, this really only affects the people who are using vendor software, using the third-party software packages. If you're doing direct data entry, then you already know that in order to get the surgeon or the anesthesiologist in your list to show up in your drop-down list, you have to submit the proper forms to get this done. So if they're showing up in your list for doing the data entry, you're covered. You don't have to worry about anything. This really affects the people using the vendor software, because although your vendor software might allow you to create a list of surgeons and anesthesiologists to pick from your data entry, you just put whatever you feel like putting in there. You could stick Mickey Mouse in there with a bogus NPI value, and your vendor software would accept it. However, when that data hits STS, we have to make sure that that surgeon has signed the proper forms and that we have that on file. So, so now this is a new check that is part of the upload process. And some of you may have already run into this. Others may see it when you're submitting data for this upcoming harvest. So it's all part of your contact list. As I said, you know, it's if the surgeons and anesthesiologists have to be on file for us to accept your data. What is happening now is when you upload the file, the software is looking at the surgeon NPIs that are in your data, the file that you're submitting, and the anesthesiologist NPIs, and they're comparing that to the lists that we have on file. And if there's any mismatch, if there's anything in your data that's not on our list, then those records get rejected and you'll get an error in your data quality report. Okay, so this is true for all of the surgeons and all the anesthesiologists in your data. That includes locum surgeons. So I know some people are having some trouble with that. Oh, that, you know, that procedure was done a year ago. That guy came in, did one surgery, and we can't find him anymore. So we have to do some struggling to get that record accepted. So one thing that we would recommend is if you use locum surgeons, when they come in to do a procedure, get them to sign a form, and so that you can make sure that you get that submitted, so that that data can be included in your analysis. You know, to get the clearest picture of what's happening at your hospital in the analysis, you want to make sure that all of your records are being included. So that would be a good thing a good practice to start up. Get the next slide, Leanne, please. Okay, so if you submit your data file and there's a problem, this is the sort of thing that you're going to see here. Now we've redacted this, so its slide looks a little ugly, but you're probably all familiar with the tile that you see at the top that has the identifier for which upload you're making. The date and the name of the file appears there. And then over on the right, it shows how many records were submitted and how many records were accepted. Key thing to look for are the red X's. That's an indicator that something went wrong. Some of that data didn't get accepted into the database. Okay, so to find out what went wrong, you click on View Reports, and it opens up the data quality report that you see at the bottom of the screen. And the first thing you see is the pie chart. And what you really want to pay attention to is the red. That's your critical errors. That's the one that's telling you these records were not accepted. So you can either click on the red in the pie chart or click on the red critical that's up on the top right-hand side there. And when you do, you'll get a list of the records below showing which records are having that issue or having critical issues. Now, when you read through the issues, it's a little hard to see on this slide. So, Leanne, if you can skip to the next slide. What you'll see is an error message like what I have up at the top there. So record, and I just stuck in XYZ there to have your record ID will be listed there. Or in this case, for congenital, be operation ID. You know, record XYZ is referencing an invalid surgeon NPI. Record has been skipped. Okay, so that's telling you that record did not make it into the database, was not accepted. And the reason was because we did not have a matching surgeon NPI. Okay, so lots of things can trigger that when you get a similar message for the anesthesiologists. A lot of things can trigger this. It could be that we received a blank in the NPI, or we received an NPI that wasn't on our list. So it's a surgeon that never signed Schedule A form. Or we have a signature for that surgeon, but we have a different NPI than what you're seeing. Any of those scenarios will trigger this error that there's a problem. All right, so the first thing that you want to do to check if you start getting these error messages is you want to check your contact list. Okay, so there's a report in the IQVIA platform where you can see this. In order to see this, you have to have the role of primary data file contact or backup data file contact. Okay, so anybody with one of those roles will be able to see this report. And actually, Leanne, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and jump to the next slide, and I'll come back to this one. So when you're within the IQVIA platform, you'll see the operational reports choice on the left-hand side. And then if you're like me working with a really tiny screen, you probably have to scroll down to the bottom to see the contact list report. But when you click on that, you'll see what's on the next slide. And it's a report that looks similar to this one. Now we redacted the actual names here because we don't want to share particular surgeons on a demonstration. But you'll get a list of all of your contacts and the roles that those contacts hold. Okay. Now this is going to be your surgeons, your anesthesiologists, your your primary contacts, your backup data contacts. Most of the roles that we have, they're going to be showing up on this list. I know there's a couple that don't, billing contact. And I think there's another one that doesn't show up, but because those people don't have rights to get into IQVIA, so there's no point in sticking them on this report. But one thing to note about this is that this is showing all of your active contacts. So if somebody was a primary data file contact before and they left, you're not going to see them on this list anymore because their account has been made inactive. Same thing's true for your surgeons. If your surgeons are no longer active and you've sent in to say that they are no longer active to disable their account, they're not going to show up on this report anymore. For your inactive surgeons and anesthesiologists, you can still submit their old data as long as the surgery date for those procedures is prior to the date that you said that this surgeon went inactive. I think that's kind of getting down into the weeds a little bit too much. So just the takeaway there is just know that if you have an inactive surgeon, talk to us at help desk. We'll help you through that part. But the main thing is that you will not see those surgeons in this report here. Okay, so what do you do with this information? First thing to do is take a look at your data. Find all the surgeons that you have in your data and compare them with the surgeons that are on this report. If there's any surgeons in your data that's not on this report, that's an indicator that we do not have a Schedule A for that surgeon. You're going to go get a Schedule A and you're going to submit it to STS, let it go through processing and get loaded into the system. Then you should be able to resubmit that data and it would be accepted without any problem. Okay. If you do see the surgeon, if all of the surgeons in your data you see on your list on this report, that's an indicator that we have a wrong value for one of your surgeons. So you want to double check this. And Leanne, if go ahead and skip to the next slide. I think it's the next one. Nope. Nope. Okay, go back one. Okay. Okay. I'm going to leave it. I know Banu is going to cover this about how filling out the contact forms and stuff like that. But what we would recommend is if all of the surgeons in your data match the surgeons that are listed on your report, then we have bad data for them. You want to go to the National Registry for NPIs and double check that you're using the correct value for your surgeon. We did have a case come up where there was Dr. Bob Smith was the surgeon, and we had an NPI for him. And when we looked it up, we found out that he was a podiatrist. Kind of hoping that's not the guy doing the cardiac surgery. And so, it was a different Bob Smith. He's just a different surgeon in a different state and everything. So not only do you have to make sure that we have the NPI, we have to make sure we have the right NPI. Okay. Yes. So thank you, Leanne. Leanne brought up the national registry here. So it's simple. You just go in and you can type in the NPI number that you think it should be, make sure it's the right person. I think you can also check on the name and come up with an NPI. So.
Yeah, and I believe the link is on the third or the fourth slide for the NPI registry. So it's on there.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, Leanne, I'm going to ask you to back up a couple of slides here. There you go. Right there. Good. Thank you. Okay. So the same thing applies for surgeons and anesthesiologists. If you take a look at that contact list and you don't see, like, suppose, if you don't see any anesthesiologists out there on that report, that means we don't have any anesthesiologists, no active anesthesiologists associated with your participant. And so you need to get your anesthesiologists to fill out a Schedule B. And Banu is going to cover that part as well. So, all right. Oh, back one.
Oh, sorry, Paul.
Yep, no, that's okay. Back one more.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, there we go. That's the link I was looking for. So this is the link that you should be going to look up your NPI values. Okay. And so if you need to change your NPIs, or you need to tell us about a new surgeon or a new anesthesiologist or a locum surgeon, you have to fill out a participant contact form. And in that form, you'll be able to submit a Schedule A for your surgeons and a Schedule B for your anesthesiologists. And that's where Banu comes in. She's going to step in and tell you all about that fun stuff. So turn it over to you, Banu.
Thanks, Paul. So now, since Paul shared with you how you can access the contact list report on the database platform, I'll just start off by reviewing how you can add contacts to your contact list report. So let's say that you do not see one contact or one surgeon on that report that you've been uploading cases for some time now, or there's a new surgeon you'd like to add to your PID to your site, or there's a surgeon, anesthesiologist, or a contact you'd like to deactivate. In all of these cases, the participant contact form is the correct platform to initiate all of these change requests. Participant contact form, in short, PCF, is an online form, which you can see on the screen here, that you can fill out and submit, and it allows STS to make those changes that you request, and it's the fastest and easiest way to make those changes, really. There are multiple ways you can access a PCF form. One is you can go onto the STS website under research and data. I'm pretty sure all the data managers are familiar with this link. For data managers, you scroll down, and under essential forms and resources, you can see the participant contact form. Or you can just go to the STS website, put participant contact form on the search bar, and hit search, and you can locate the form and use the link. Or you can just use the link here that I provided for everyone, and hopefully we'll be sharing the slide deck on the STS website following this webinar. So it's the PCF form is a pretty basic one-page document where we ask for the full name, NPI number, email address of the contacts you're adding to your PID. And once you fill out the form, you click submit and you're done. It literally takes 2, perhaps 3 minutes of your time if you're uploading a Schedule A, which we will touch base soon. And it also allows you to send multiple requests with one form. Let's say you can add a surgeon, add a contact, and then deactivate multiple people under one form as long as it's under one PID. So please note that a separate form is needed for each PID. Could you please skip to the next one, Leah? So we do receive questions around which database participant role you should assign to a new contact whom you're adding to your PID. And that's a great question, but that's not something we can answer on your behalf. So that's why we provided these 2 documents under essential forms and document section as well. The first one, which you can see on the right side, is participant roles and IQVIA platform user mapping. And the other one is participant roles and descriptions. And these two documents let you decide which roles you want to assign depending on the level of access you would like to give to the database participant. For example, an anesthesiologist, if you're adding an anesthesiologist to your PID, they will have read-only access, which means they can only access non-analyzed and analyzed reports, but they don't have the ability to upload files. So as you can see here, primary data and backup data contacts have the ability to upload files to the IQVIA platform. And one brief information which Paul recently touched, while he was reviewing the slides with you all, is the billing contact and contract contact roles. Those roles are not granted access to the IQVIA platform, so you will not see these roles under your contact list report. So let's say you received an invoice or someone is asking you about an invoice that they haven't received, and you would like to know who your billing contact is or your contract contact is. You can reach out to us and we'll be happy to provide that information for you, since you will not see these two roles under your contact list report. Could you please skip to the next one, Leanne? So depending on who you're adding to your PID, there might be one more mandatory document needed with the participant contact form. For surgeons, it's the Schedule A form, and for anesthesiologists, it's the Schedule B form. We cannot add a surgeon or an anesthesiologist to your PID unless we do have a signed and complete Schedule A and Schedule B forms, respectively. So this form basically gives us the permission to work with that surgeon's data, so you can understand why we're not able to add a surgeon without the Schedule A, or an anesthesiologist without a Schedule B. And furthermore, contractually, you're required to provide us with one while you're adding these roles to your PID. And as I mentioned before, you can find it under the STS website, under research and data for data managers. Please scroll down to essential forms and resources, and you can see these two documents there as well. And it's really easy to send these documents along with your participant contact form. Within the form, there's a question, as you can see on the right side. It just asks you if you're submitting a Schedule A form, and that will always be a yes if you are submitting for a surgeon or for an anesthesiologist. And then once you click yes, you can upload the Schedule A or Schedule B on your on file that you have. And then you can just submit the form once you're done with it, and we will receive both of those documents. And you are able to upload multiple Schedule A's and multiple Schedule B's if you're sending in information for multiple surgeons as well. So again, you can do this. You can add surgeons in any context under one PID with one form only and send it our way. Could you please skip to the next one? So just to make things a little easier for you, I have included the links so that you can access both of these documents, but also please keep in mind that you can always access these forms through the SCS website, as I mentioned. You can just have the surgeon fill out all the information, the PID number, the signature, the name, the NPI, and the address, and just upload it to your PCF form. Could you please skip to the next one? So this is a very, minor information, but it's really important not to delay the process when we're adding these contacts to our PIDs. We can only accept PCF forms from primary and backup contacts. If you're, let's say, another role on your database is submitting a participant contact form, we will always reach out to you and make sure that the primary contacts or the backup contacts, we will reach out to them and ask for their approval and to ensure that we can add that contact to your PID. So please make sure that it's the primary contact or the backup contact who's submitting PCF forms to STS. Next slide, please. Before we wrap up, just a quick reminder again, we do confirmation of credentials, so it should be the PDFC, the primary contact, or the PDFC backup contact that's sending us the PCF form. And please note that the processing time is usually 5 to 7 business days, just because we have been receiving a lot of these forms lately. We do our best, and we're very fast. We were a small but mighty team, and we do our best to process everything. But it takes time, and we don't want to be making mistakes with these, especially when you're uploading your cases. We just want to make sure that it's a smooth process for you, for everyone. So please allow us some time to process these forms. So send them timely, please. Again, we do our best, even if someone sends these forms within the last week of harvest close, we do our best, but it takes a lot of time to get things right, and make sure that everything runs smoothly on the back end. Please note that requests via email will only delay the process. We sometimes receive requests like, here's the email address, would you please at the surgeon, here's the Schedule A form. We go back to them asking, for them to submit a Schedule A form. So everything can be done properly on our end. We do have a due process, and please note that requests via email will only delay the process. Next slide, please. Okay, that's it. That's what we have today for you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and let us know if you have any questions.
And Banu, I remembered there was a point we wanted to add this into a slide and forgot to. One thing we would recommend is go ahead and submit some data.
Yes.
Give it a try. Take 2 or 3 months worth of data. Enough to give you a sample that you're getting all of your surgeons and all of your anesthesiologists, and just go ahead and submit it. Just submit it today. If there's any mix-up, if there's any mismatches with the NPIs, it'll trigger today. And so you can start working on this and get the paperwork done and stuff. Don't wait until the last week of the harvest to start doing this, because it gets swamped and then everybody's in a panic to get your data in. So, try it as soon as you can to submit some data and make sure that all of the NPIs are being accepted. And then if not, then go through this process. We could get this done quickly. So now we're done.
Awesome, thank you. Alrighty, and we do have a couple questions. I think we can get through these rather quickly, and then I'm going to turn things over to Chastity, because I know she's got get through her presentation. From Amy, she wanted to know if they needed to worry about anesthesiologists if they didn't participate in the anesthesia database.
No, if you do not participate in the anesthesiology portion of the data collection form, you don't have to worry about your anesthesiologists.
And Schedule B has signature lines but no context. I'm wondering if you could add something to the top of the form so they know what they're agreeing to. Yeah, we could definitely take this back to our contracts team, so we'll take that feedback back to Derek and team Angie. Thank you. Let's see, Paul or Banu, is this exclusive to CHSD? If an anesthesiologist, for example, is on contact list for the STS adult database for our center, does that transfer over to CHSD?
No, it does not. This does apply to all 3 registries, and the thing is that we need the signature for the participant ID. And so if it's in a different registry, it's going to have a different participant ID, so we need a different form for that.
Yes,
so
that's why I mentioned that, every PCF, we can receive multiple requests under one PCF, but it needs to be per PID. So if you edit a contact to your adult registry, you need to ensure that you're sending another PCF to add that person to your, congenital registry as well, database as well.
Okay. And let's see, Nicole. If I have a surgeon who used to be in our practice but is now in another practice, I need them to sign a Schedule A form because they had operations back in 2021 that I got an error from. Are they putting their current work address or work address from when they were working with us?
I don't think address is as important. You can put your current address, I would say.
Let's see. And Nancy said she's waiting to hear back regarding adult cardiac anesthesia.
The anesthesia list is on that contact form. It's the same one. It shows up on the same list. If you don't have an anesthesiologist showing up on your contact form, it's because we don't have any active anesthesiologists for your participant. You need to fill out a Schedule B for those anesthesiologists, and then they will show up in that report.
All right, great. All right. So hopefully that answers your question, Nancy. So if you don't have any active, you're not seeing any there, then we don't have any active anesthesiologists for your site. All right, Chastity. We're going to turn things over to Chas for her post-operative event review.
Awesome, thank you. Great talk, Banu and Paul. We appreciate all of the information. So I'm not going to go over any specific post-operative events, but as you know, in the last webinar last month, it was discussed which surgery or which operation do you assign the post-operative event. So I want to go through some discussion with that. And just so you know what's coming in July, there's going to be specific education to the replacements of ascending aortas. So please make sure that you join us in July for that. This will be tandem with Leslie working with the adult database consultants. And so it will be full of information, and the entire webinar will be dedicated to that topic. So just so you know that that's coming next month. So next slide, Leanne. So as we go through our post-operative events, and you look in the training manual for the definition under post-operative events, you know that it states that they can be coded on the index operation or the operation that is most closely associated with the event. Knowing that upon analysis, no matter where you coded that post-operative event, it will go back to the index operation. So however you want your data locally is really up to you or your program. Next slide. So there are pros and cons to where you want to assign your post-operative events. And I would plug that at AQO, when you're there networking, this is one of those details that you can talk to other people to see how they do their data and how you decide you want to do your data. So if you were to choose the index operation, and that's where you want to assign all of your complications, any subsequent operations following the index operation, you would just say no complications or post-op events, knowing that you're going to put them all or code them all on your index operation. Some people like this because then your data matches the STS analysis report, where in those lesion-specific sections, many of the major post-operative events are reported. And so then your data will match the STS analysis report. Also, there's some ease when you pull your local data. For example, if you have a patient that experienced cardiac dysfunction after their index operation, and then they stay for a long time and have another major cardiac operation where again, they experience cardiac failure or dysfunction following that operation, you may code it twice so that locally you want to know that this patient experienced this after their index and then again after another major operation. That's absolutely fine. But if you, like me, use many pivot tables to get to your data, it's going to count that post-operative event twice, or as many times as you have it coded. Now, STS will not. You will only receive the credit for the post-operative event one time, but just locally, it's something to keep in mind when you are looking at your data and trying to determine your rate of a specific post-operative event. So then if you decide to code it then on the associated operation, the deal here is you get increased detail or granularity of a patient's post-operative course. So for example, they have an index operation that's pretty benign, or the post-operative course following that index operation is pretty benign. They stay and have a subsequent major operation. And following that second operation is when they experience, let's say, a stroke. And so from a program perspective, perhaps you don't want to look at it as that it occurred after the index, but you want to review it as it actually occurred, immediately following this secondary procedure. So that's totally fine. It really is up to your program as to how you want to do this. No matter what, STS is going to analyze the post-operative events as associated with the index operation. So it is fine. You get to make the decision for your program. Next slide. So this is just a graphic to look at how the post-operative event analysis is completed when all of your data has been submitted to the IQVIA platform. So in this example, you have a patient that during the one episode of care underwent 3 operations and experienced a post-operative event following each of these operations. And then all of that then will go into the analysis. So now let's plug in some real data. Next slide. So after the first operation, the patient experienced a cardiac arrest. They went and had a second operation and they experienced an unplanned cardiac re-op. And then they had a third operation and they experienced an arrhythmia necessitating a permanent pacemaker placement. So upon analysis, it doesn't matter if you coded these all on operation number 1, or if you coded each of these postoperative events following whichever procedure they most likely occurred with. Upon analysis for the index operation, in your report, you would see that you had all 3 postoperative events that would show up in your tables. Next slide. So now what if I tell you that operation number 1 was actually ECMO cannulation? And then that's when they experienced a cardiac arrest, was following cannulation for ECMO. Operation number 2 was then a Norwood, and where they experienced then an unplanned cardiac reoperation. And operation number 3 was a mediastinal washout. And following that mediastinal washout, there was an arrhythmia necessitating permanent pacemaker placement. So because you have all of these coded on all of the operations, you will see upon analysis, all 3 post-op events will make it into the analysis. Next slide. However, what you should be thinking here is, wait a minute, that ECMO cannulation and the unexpected cardiac arrest that occurred following that ECMO cannulation occurred prior to ever having an index operation. So it wouldn't make sense. Now, this is just how the algorithm for event analysis occurs in the database. And so we have to have a caveat here, which is exactly the question that was asked in the last webinar. What do you do with the postoperative events that occur on an operation that was prior to your index operation? So there is a rule that was in the previous version that will also, it stands true in this version, and I apologize that it did not make it into the training manual. So it is there now, I promise. So next slide. You do not code postoperative events on operations that occur prior to the index operation. Instead, you will code these as preoperative factors where applicable. Next slide. So in this scenario that we went through, you would not code following the ECMO cannulation, you would say no to postoperative events. You would not code that unplanned cardiac arrest. Sorry, I blocked it. Now I don't even know what it said. But you would code everything that occurred after the index operation. So from the point of index on. And so then upon analysis, you're going to see that you would have the unplanned cardiac re-op as well as an arrhythmia necessitating the permanent pacemaker placement. So you need to always be aware of what your index operation is for each particular patient. Next slide. Oh, repeat. It's very important. So we want to repeat it again. Go ahead, Leanne, next slide. So let's go through a few examples to help you with this. On post-op day 2, following an arterial switch operation, a patient requires ECMO cannulation with decannulation the following day. Within hours of ECMO decannulation, the patient again decompensates and requires a reoperation for tamponade. So which procedure should the unplanned cardiac reoperation be coded with? And there is a poll for you. So number 1 is, would you code it as institutional choice? You get to pick. Number 2, with the arterial switch operation, which is the identified index operation, or would you code it following ECMO decannulation? Okay, so it looks like the numbers are slowing down.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and every time I say that, the number jumps up.
I know, right? It looks like we've got a spattering of all operations.
Yep, I'm gonna go ahead and end it, Chas, and share the results.
Okay.
And can you see the results?
It looks like about 30% of people chose institutional choice. Almost 60% chose the switch, and 12% chose the ECMO decannulation. And the point is, all of these answers are absolutely correct. It is your choice, would have been the primary answer, knowing it will be attributed to the index operation. But if you chose to put it on the index operation, you would have selected arterial switch. If you wanted to put it after the operation that it most likely occurred following, then you would pick ECMO decannulation. So again, it's institutional choice. Everyone is absolutely correct. Next slide. At birth, a patient is cannulated for ECMO and experiences a hemorrhagic stroke with subsequent severe left-sided weakness. 1 week later, the patient undergoes central shunt placement. Upon discharge home, the patient remains weak on the left side but is responsive to therapy. Which procedure should the stroke be coded with? Next poll. So is this institutional choice? Is it after the central shunt placement, which is your index operation, ECMO cannulation, or do not code as a postoperative event? Okay, I think it's stabilized, Leanne.
Yes, ma'am. All right, we're gonna
All
go
right.
ahead and end the
We will get
poll.
the results. So it looks like 70% of you chose do not code as a postoperative event, and then there were some selections of the others. So you are correct if you chose do not code as a postoperative event. Remember, the patient was cannulated for ECMO prior to the central shunt placement. The central shunt placement is your index operation because it's the first CPB or no CPB cardiac operation of the episode of care. So because the ECMO cannulation occurred prior, we would not include this as a postoperative event. Next slide. So same scenario, how would you then capture the neurologic deficit? Would you not capture it since it occurred prior to the index operation? Would you code it as a preoperative factor for the shunt placement or as a postoperative neurological deficit present at discharge? Okay, Leanne, I think that's good.
Yes, ma'am.
Get
All
our
right.
results. So about 4% of you said it's not captured since it occurred prior to the index operation. 88% of you said it should be captured as a preoperative factor for the shunt. And 8% said you would code it as a postoperative neurological deficit that's present at discharge. So the correct answer here is that you would code it as a preoperative factor for the shunt placement. A is also correct that you wouldn't capture it, but you wouldn't capture it as a postoperative event was the missing piece there, but you would be able to capture that persistent left-sided weakness related to the stroke as a preoperative factor neurological deficit for the shunt placement. So great job. A patient undergoes a Norwood operation and requires ECMO cannulation for a cardiac arrest. The patient remains in-house until their Glenn procedure and requires brief resuscitation with chest compressions for an oral aspiration event prior to discharge. So which procedures are the cardiac arrests coded with? Is it the Norwood operation, the Glenn operation, both the Norwood and Glenn operation, or it is your institutional choice? Okay, Leanne, I think that's a good place to stop.
Yes, ma'am. And
Like most of you said, institutional choice, although it was followed closely with the Norwood operation. So the point here is all of these are correct. It is your choice as to where you want to code this. You can code it on the Norwood, which is your index operation. You can code it on the Glenn operation. You could have coded it on the ECMO cannulation and decannulation or any and all of the above. No matter how you choose to code it and where you choose to code it, or the number of times you choose to code the cardiac arrest, it will only count as one cardiac arrest upon analysis attributed to the index operation, which in this scenario is your Norwood operation. So great job, everybody. So in summary, you're going to continue to code all the post-operative events as defined in the training manual for the index operations and the operations following the index operation. Do not code the post-operative events on operations that occur prior to the index operation. And so again, this is spelled out in the training manual. There's even an example to follow of where you would attribute some preoperative risk factors based on a case that occurred prior to your index operation. So hopefully you find that helpful as well. And of course, Leslie and I are always available for any questions that you might have, should this be causing you, you know, any grief or headache or a change in how you've been coding your post-operative events. And I think that should be my last slide.
That is, thank you, Chas, Leslie, Paul, Banu. So we do have a couple of questions. And I did not notice, I apologize, there was a couple of hands raised before, I think before Chastity had started with her portion of the presentation. So I think Heather's hand was up first. So Heather, I've unmuted you if you have a question. I don't know, looks like you're still muted, but I'm not sure if you had a question or not. Okay, I'm gonna go to Jessica. Jessica, I think you have a question.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's all right. Okay, again, Laura, it's not a problem at all. Good to hear your voice either way. And Heather, I think I don't know if you try it again.
I didn't have my hand up either. If I did, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. It's good to hear you guys hear your voices. So, okay, Sam has a question. Why can't the analysis be adjusted to exclude post-operative events on cases occurring prior to the index operation?
That is an excellent question, Sam, and one that I don't actually have the answer to. It is definitely something that we can suggest in future analyses.
Right. Yep, we could take that back to Subramanian, and that would be a decision that would have to be, I think, made at the task force level. So if with changes to the analysis like that. So we'll take that back to Dr. Subramanian. Let's see here. While we're waiting for any additional questions, again, our next upcoming monthly webinars, as Chas said, July 16th webinar will be doing the aorta case review. So look forward to that on July 16th. So happy to have you, love for you guys join us there. And then after our July webinar, we have our next webinar scheduled for August the 20th. So, and I think that is all that we have. I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. Again, our contact information is listed here. If you need any assistance, please reach out to the STSDB_help desk at sts.org for any questions regarding updating your contact information, as well as any questions related to your analysis report or data submissions. My email address is here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly as well. And Amy, so yes, we'll, like I said, we will pass that information on to Dr. Subramanian and the analytics team. So, and see what they have to say. But thank you, David, Chastity, Leslie, and team did a phenomenal presentation today. And but no, we do not have any updates yet on when the analysis for spring 24 is expected. IQVIA is continuing to update the platform, but we do expect to begin our internal review and testing next week. So as we get through the testing, we'll learn more. So hopefully I'll have more information for you all as we start working through that internal testing process. So again, I'll share more information with you as we learn more next week and throughout the process. So I wish I could provide you with an exact date at this time, but unfortunately, I do not have one to share as of yet. All right. Well, again, not seeing any additional questions come in. Thanks everyone for joining today. I appreciate you guys. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions or concerns. We're happy to help in any way. Thanks to my STS team. Thanks, Dr. Meyer, for hopping on. We appreciate you being here as well. Thanks everyone for joining today. With that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you in July. We look forward to the next webinar. Thanks everyone. Hope you guys have a great week.